film companion. You are now moving on and taking the next step. I feel very grateful that you've agreed to speak about it here.
I've understood this after 10 years. We should have hired a business head on day one. Salman Khan's Kick, that was my first review. Nawazuddin Siddiqui was the first person to call and say, I want to be on Film Companion.
Mr. Shah Rukh Khan.
He was completely unlike anybody else. There was this cockiness. You know, that I know I only have 5 expressions, but it's okay, everybody else has only 3. Alia, when I first saw her in Student of the Year, I'm like, yeah, okay. Or Deepika. The first few films, I was like, beautiful, but like, what else?
Yeah.
Fahad Fasil, a miraculous actor. The Film Companion Studios, we've done a documentary on SS Rajamouli, and which is going to be on Netflix in August. Most artists tell me that before release, they have a sense that maybe this didn't turn out the way we wanted it. Sanjay Bhansali, he always says that you don't even like my movies.
A particular director said, oh, this uneducated critic.
Oh yeah, yeah. Most recently, Kauwe bhi nahi hai. Theatre mein.
I believe that you told your husband that 12th failed.
Absolutely.
People are not going to watch it.
I'm the sole defender of Befikre. Movies are business, but movies are also art. And you can do all the audience testing you want. There's no way to know what will work in a theatre. Film Companion does not cover anything that Vinod Chopra Films does.
One interview that was the most difficult to conduct.
Dilip Saab, Dilip Kumar. He did come home after seeing 3 Idiots. Aditya Chopra had once told me that they would speak about anybody who's not in the movies as civilians.
What is life going to look like at The Hollywood Reporter?
I just did my last interview with Vicky Kaushal in the studio, and we were both getting so emotional. And all this noise on the net that she's moving to LA.
I'm so excited to have you here, Anu, and it's one of the few times where I'm like extremely excited to exchange notes, because only the second
That's
time.
what we should do.
Yeah.
It's like actually just exchange notes on the reporting life,
yeah,
and the interviewing life.
Exactly. The offline conversation was already so fun. So I'm super excited. I have so many questions for
Thank you.
But thank you so much for doing this, and I'm very inspired by your work, and really grateful that you've given me the opportunity to interview you today.
Thank you.
And I hope I do a good job. So at the end of
sure
it, you'll tell me whether it was good, bad, what are notes for me. I'm very happy to take them. So you have been eating, breathing, sleeping films, and that's just not now. This is since a while, since you were growing up. Your mother was a scriptwriter. Your siblings are also in the industry. Of course, you're married also to somebody who's in the industry. So it's all very filmy.
Yeah.
So tell me, was it always like in your radar, right? That this is the path for me, because I love it.
No, not at all. And even though mom was already writing, when I was in school, she had written Prem Rog for Raj Kapoor. But it was, and we did watch films, though I have to say we watched a lot of English films. Yeah. This is, 80s. Hindi cinema. We were the VCR generation, right? So there was a guy who came to the door with this cassette, and there was nobody like there were very few times where I have like distinct memories of theatre going. It was very much just home viewing, and so we watched a lot of English films. The theatre watching was like the English movies, but it was never a thing. It was like something mom was interested in. She used to do radio. She had done Doordarshan, which was pretty much the only option at that time. So it was her kind of quote unquote hobby. She always describes herself as a homemaker and never a professional. And we were, I was an English lit major at St. Xavier's College, just doing my thing, very, very deeply interested in books. And so films like Hindi cinema was nowhere on the radar.
Yeah.
I had a teacher she was a substitute teacher, and at that point she was working at Movie Magazine. And she said, till you figure out what you really want to do, why don't you come just work here, just for a lark? And literally that's what I did, and fell in love with the film industry. So it wasn't a film that did it, it was the craziness of the film industry.
Correct. And when you decided that and then took the next step, right, which is that I want to kind of get a layer of seriousness to film journalism, which was a new industry by itself, because I don't think it existed.
No, the truth is it did exist, but at that time it was a very specific kind of journalism.
Right.
So there was the magazines, right? So it's very hard to imagine now, but at that point, the main papers, so like TOI, Indian Express, whatever, the mainstream media did not, was not obsessed with film at all. There was Stardust, Filmfare, Star and Style, Cineblitz.
Oh yeah.
You know, those were the magazines which were only about cinema. But not even cinema, they were only about film stars. Right? So Stardust had this opening thing called Neeta's Natter, you know, where it was all these gossip columns, this blind items, and you know, everybody would like devour it from cover to cover. But that was pretty much, and movie was the most staid. Movie and Filmfare were the ones that kind of didn't do as much gossip, or maybe not at all. So for me, it was like, but I wanted to talk about the movies.
Yeah,
the actual movies. And I wanted to do journalism in a way that felt more like a real thing.
It was not fluff.
It wasn't fluff. I can't, you know, and again, I always preface this by saying I am not judgmental. Gossip is important and necessary, and God knows Bridgerton has shown us how essential it is to our lives. But it's not what I thought I could spend my life doing. You know, so for me, it was very important to actually get an education to understand what it takes to be a journalist, and then do film journalism with that education.
Correct. So when you started Film Companion, did you, obviously, you know, and I relate so much to this because we just started 2 years ago. This podcast actually didn't exist. We were just doing stories on Instagram and reels and stuff. You know, when we went about thinking like, who do I want to interview, right? Like I still have this little piece of paper where I wrote down like my big wish list. Did you have that when you were just about starting and being
Film
like,
Companion?
Yeah, Film Companion.
Truthfully, no. Because it was such a random thing. Okay, so I was doing a show on Star called The Front Row, and I always speak about it as my Karan Johar phase because we had a great budget. We had a standing set at Mehboob Studio for 2 years. Like, think about that.
That's insane.
Right? You know, so it was crazy. And it's the only time in my life I've had a vanity van that said Anupama Chopra on the door, and I was like, this is it. Abhi isse aage to ho hi nahi sakta.
I got my vanity.
And when the contract for that expired, right, and they did not renew, we started to think about, okay, what do we do? The only thing we knew was production, that we could just produce and I could be on camera. And of course, before The Front Row, I'd already done probably like 7-8 years with NDTV, which was my first on-camera experience. But with Film Companion, it was like, and literally this was my husband Vinod's idea. He was like, you know, anyway, I don't think reviews should be appointment viewing. Nobody sits down at 8:30 on Friday, which is when The Front Row aired, to say, let me find out
how this movie did.
How this movie is right? So he said, you should just be available 24/7. Let's do YouTube. And I was like, we knew nothing. Like literally nothing. This was July 2014. We said, kya idea hai? You know,
let's do YouTube.
Let's do YouTube. I had no clue, nothing. And we started with Kick, with Salman Khan's Kick. That was my first review.
Wow.
So there was nothing Kick iske paas jayenge, but the first person, and I have to say this because it still is such a, it made me so emotional. Nawazuddin Siddiqui was the first person to call and say, I want to be on Film Companion.
Wow.
And so I've never forgotten that. That was the first interview we did.
That is so special. You always remember that first initial.
You know, kuch nahi tha. It was literally like a tiny, 3 or 4 people, Smriti Kiran, Kalpana Nair, who of course also then got involved with Mami with me. But it was just a bunch of us. And I remember so clearly we uploaded the Kick review, and then Vinod brought a bottle of champagne, and we were like, yay! We're on YouTube. And that was it.
Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Do let us know what you think down in the comments. We always read what you have to say. And on that note, I want to fill you in on something really exciting that we're building at Humans of Bombay. So you guys know, we've mastered the art of storytelling for the past 10 years. And you have trusted us to tell your story. So now it's time for us to empower you. So me, along with 5 other experts, have curated a course for just that, where you learn how to tell your story in different settings. So it's called How to Tell Your Story, and the course is live now. You can check it down below in the link or even on the pop-up here. And with that, let's get back to the podcast. So when you compare notes, right, between say front row that you did in a extremely professional, grand setup, vanity and all, before that NDTV, to starting something of your own, which is an entirely different beast, right? Like you are now responsible and you have to do the team and the everything that's around it. What was that shift like for you?
Very tough.
Yeah.
Very hard. First of all, also unlearning television, right? Television as a medium is much more formal. It's much more hello and welcome. And digital is not at all. So I had been trained for like 10, 12 years in this much more formal medium, digital. And, obviously I'm not a digital native. And the only reason I got on Twitter is because Rajiv Masan convinced me. Instagram also, I was like, nahi yaar. And now, of course, I'm addicted to everything. But still, it doesn't come naturally. It didn't then.
It draws you in though.
It draws you in. Yeah. Of course it does. But so it was like just unlearning the stiffness, if I can say that, or the formality of TV, becoming sort of just looser and easier, but also understanding that this is as loose and easy as you'll be.
Like you have a bar, right?
You have a bar because it's essentially who you are.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be the, you'll never be Lily Singh, man. It's not going to happen.
And that takes a special kind of talent. I have so much respect for people who can do that.
Me too. I interviewed her once and she tried to get me to do the sign off and I couldn't even do that.
I know. Yeah.
So it was those things. And of course, being an entrepreneur and looking at P&Ls and trying to make business sense is really not my forte. And I've understood this after 10 years, that perhaps we should have hired a business head on day one, which is what none of us even thought about. So not a good idea, just saying it, putting it out there, folks.
But you can only look at it backwards, right? You're like,
exactly.
This was not the most optimal.
Matlab, who would have, like, it seems obvious, na? Film critic turns entrepreneur, like, kuch to ghanti bajni chahiye. Maybe just someone with numbers should be in there.
Yeah. So in this amazing journey of yours where you've learned about the not so great numbers, but you've had some fascinating conversation and you have possibly the number one person on my list, who is Mr. Shah Rukh Khan.
Yes.
And you have interviewed him. You've also written a book and you've done multiple interviews with him. And I'll try to keep my, my envy to the minimum when I say this. How was it?
I've always said this, that he's my favorite person to interview.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. The first time I interviewed him was late 90s. He was shooting for Duplicate. I think it was Duplicate.
Wow.
Maybe not. He had... Oh
Yes,
God,
Boss?
No. It was definitely not Yes Boss. He was playing Ram Jane.
Ram Jane.
Okay, so he was in a purple suit and he had this big gold necklace and he was the bad guy. And I was on that set and talking to him and of course, just trying to figure out, like, what is this man made of? Because he was completely unlike anybody else in the film industry.
Why do you say that?
Because there was a veneer of arrogance, even though he was not the superstar that he became. There was this cockiness, that I know I only have 5 expressions, but it's okay. Everybody else has only 3. Those are like my favorite early SRK lines.
Yeah.
He said something where he said about Gauri, it's all good. She likes me and I like me. It was, and this would just come like non-stop. And this is, of course, for print. I was working with India Today at the time. But, we started there. And my last interview was Jab Harry Met Sejal, which is like, I don't know, like 20 plus years later. And with the book, of course, we really did a deep dive. And I did hours and hours of just conversation. And he does not have a boring moment.
I can imagine. Yeah.
There's no point at which you're looking like, okay, like, can we be done? Like, you just want to keep listening.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's because, of course, he's really smart and he's really passionate about what he does. He doesn't take it lightly. But it's also because he has the ability to laugh. And he can laugh at himself. And he can joke. And he can... and I think that's very important.
Of course.
You know, that it really elevates the conversation when you can inject humor into it. I'll never forget this. So when Jeff Bezos had come to India, there was a conversation with Shah Rukh, him, and I think it was Zoya was on the stage. And at one point, like, he poured Bezos some water. And he was like, oh my God, you guys are so polite. And this was pre-Pathan and pre-Jawan. And so Shah Rukh says, it's only because I've had a couple of flops. And I've never forgotten that. I'm like, look at this man who's in a difficult place because he's a superstar who's had films underperform for several years now. And can still laugh about it.
On that level, on that stage.
That level. You know, and to me, that's just so admirable that I, you know, full marks.
Full marks and then some.
Exactly.
And tell me, what are things that you learned about him or learned from him when you were doing these like multiple interviews in an extremely deep way? And very few people have that access in the world, right? And that's saying something.
You know, Karishma, I don't want to make myself sound so special. The truth is, at that point, the relationship was also with actors. I mean, I remember just calling him, like in London, when he had an operation, and this was when I was still with India Today, and he would talk, and this is such a clear memory because he was walking down Oxford Street, and he was like, something about his operation. He said, yes, and then now I have this titanium thing in my neck or something, and he said, okay, gotta hang up, I'm being mobbed. It was so funny. So I feel like it was also a time when there were less gatekeepers.
Right. Yeah. Gatekeeping is huge, right? In terms of access. It just is not what it used to be.
It's not.
In certain terms, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So does that through your journey with other actors, and as from year to year, as you've been doing this for so long, how's this component played a factor in you bringing out the actual, you know, the crux of the interview?
So I think it's a more complex thing now because it's obviously there are more minders. There is a PR person standing on the side usually when you're having a conversation. Sometimes you get asked for questions. Sometimes you get asked to see the actual interview and
before it's
published. You know, and that's not for me. How journalism should work. And fine, I understand you want to see some questions or talking points. I'm happy to share talking points, but I always feel sharing questions would dilute the conversation. It can't be rehearsed. You know?
Like, I'll say this about this particular question.
You can't. You shouldn't. Because like, usme jaan hi nahi hai, you know. But the flip side is I also know where they're coming from because I've been also, and I'm no one, right? In the scheme of things, who gives a shit? Who am I? But I've been at the end of trolling, of real kind of hate online. And I know that anything you say and do will be held against you in the public court of law. You know,
I've been there.
You've been there. You know, so
aggressively.
Exactly. So I know that, and obviously they are public figures. They are famous. One thing taken out of context. So which is why I understand. You know, which is why I will push back. And I always, though to be fair, it's not like I felt that, oh my God, this interview was a real loss because of the sanitizing. That's never happened.
Okay.
You know,
that's good. That's good to hear.
It's good. You know, they might ask, and sometimes the PR will say, can you please take that line out?
Yeah, that's happened with us as well.
And I'm like, you know what? I get it. It's fine. You know, it's fine. I mean, and it is just the state of the world.
Correct.
So I can't even go into like, oh my God, they've become too, you know, into PR and too much into projection, etc., etc. It's just, I know what can happen.
Where they're coming from. Yeah. What are some of the most fascinating conversations you've had in your journey? Something very unexpected. An unexpected guest who, like, you were like, okay, I don't know. I mean, you didn't expect
Yeah.
too much, but it turned out to be very fascinating.
So, there was one conversation at the Toronto Film Festival with Steven Soderbergh.
Okay.
And it was amazing because, so I've done a lot of Hollywood junkets and it's really high stress because it's literally 5 minutes by a clock. There's a clock behind you and behind the artist ticking.
Oh my God.
And there's a human being saying rap. And they control the cameras, right?
So they can just,
They'll cut you. They'll just walk into frame and cut you if you extend. But Steven Soderbergh, and this must be, I want to say maybe 14, 15 years ago, actually went through all the people who wanted to interview him and gave some of us more time.
Oh.
So we got maybe 20 minutes, I want to say, which was massive, which was big. And then he talked about, his film, he talked about direction, he talked about why he works at a certain pace. At that time, he was just, it was film after film after film. And I remember at one point, it was something about him being an artist within the Bollywood, I'm saying, within the Hollywood system, or an artist outside of the Hollywood system. There was some question like that. And he turned around to me and said, I don't know, what do you think? And I was like, so taken aback.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I'd not expected that at all because so rarely do they
Turn it around.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't.
It's so much by I'm here to plug this. You're hitting the beats.
Correct. Yeah.
And so it just became so fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds it.
Yeah, he was just lovely. And I think with some of the Indian stars, somebody, of course, Shah Rukh, but also someone like Saif Ali Khan.
Oh, yeah.
Just fascinating. He's so articulate and he's so well read. And then some of the things he'll say to you are just incredible.
Yeah.
I had that same experience. So we've done the Film Companion Studios. We've done a documentary on SS Rajamouli, and which is going to be on Netflix in August.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so excited. So we followed him for a year and a half. I went to Japan, I went to LA, while the whole RRR Oscar push was happening. And just to hear him talk, just the simplicity.
Just to be like shadowing him
Yeah.
would be fascinating.
It was
'cause
amazing.
What goes on in his brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, where do these images
These
come
come
from?
from. Yeah.
How are you thinking a man leaping out of cages with animals?
Everybody's flying together. And you believe it.
Of course you
That's
are.
the
You're
funny part.
clapping.
Yeah, you're like, yes.
Cheering like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And for me to listen to him and to kind of understand that at the surface level, there is such simplicity as a family, as an artist, there's no entitlement, there's no peripherals, there's zero entourage, but the complexity of his ideas and the grandness of his ambition, for me, that was amazing.
It sounds it. Well, I'm so excited to watch it in August.
Thank you.
And to everybody, I'm sure everybody's so excited to watch it. I'm very excited because I've always wondered. And the biggest shock was when I saw him in this cred ad. And I was like, whoa, I was like, for 2 minutes, he was in and it was extremely funny. And I was like, wow, this person can be so unpredictable.
It's like such a deadpan expression. And then he's very funny. Suddenly he'll say something and it's hilarious. And then he'll be with you, but his head is in whatever, the film. He was already in sort of, writing stages of the next one, the one with Mahesh Babu. And literally, you could be anyone, you could not be there. It doesn't matter. He's not there.
Wow. That's so fascinating.
In his head, in that project, thinking of the next. For me, it was just fascinating to have a front row. Yes. Into this artist's mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to watch that. Tell me about how difficult it is to be a reviewer while juggling this industry and the interviews, right? Because we do interviews, we do podcasts. It's pretty straightforward. I have no opinion whatsoever on the actual film.
Do you watch them?
I do watch them.
But you don't say in public what you thought?
No, because I don't feel the need to. And because I just feel like that's not my expertise. I don't believe that I have the skill set that you have to kind of appropriately review a film. Therefore, and I do have a certain level of responsibility in terms of people who follow me to not give a false premise. But I say, oh my God, I saw the best film ever if I did. Yes, and that happens to be your husband's film. I posted about 12th Fail saying this is the movie of the decade for me. Because I started watching it at home and I had to come to office because I had a meeting, and I finished the second half in office and I was weeping in my conference room. And I was like, I don't remember.
That will make him very happy. I will let him know.
I was like, I don't remember the last time this happened. And I've posted about it everywhere, told everybody, please watch it, made my sisters watch it. So I'll do that.
Yeah.
But from a critical lens, I don't have the skill set. So no. So how difficult is that position?
It's very difficult.
Okay. So,
and it's always been. It's always been, because you're evaluating someone's work, and that's never easy.
Never.
No. And I get it. I get it. It's, again, I see where people are coming from. It's not easy to spend years working at something and believing in something, though most artists tell me that before release, they know more or less where it's going to land.
The film.
The film.
Correct.
They have a sense that maybe this didn't turn out the way we wanted it to. So artists tell me that a lot. But obviously, you don't want to hear it from a critic.
Yeah.
You always want to hear something positive. So it's not easy at all. Also because the truth is, you will lose access with many people. There are many people who are very sorted, Karan being one of them, who has always said that this is your opinion and you are entitled to it. Sanjay Bhansali, he always says that you don't even like my movies. I'm like, that's not true. but he says, I like you. So you have those people. But for many people, it hits too hard and you will lose access.
Almost.
It's personal. Yeah. Which it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I would never, and when it is personal, I will not review the film. If there is a relationship that is in place. When I wrote the book on Shah Rukh, I didn't review his cinema because I felt like if I'm going to be with this person so much and we're doing a book, and obviously he's going to read this book before it gets published, there is a give and take.
And it's a bias.
It is a bias. So I should not be reviewing his cinema.
Yeah.
So I feel like people should understand that it's not personal. And I'm coming from a place of love and passion and I have to speak my truth. But I understand they don't. And then it gets hard.
So what do you do when it gets nasty? Like I've read a few places, where a particular director was cheesed off with your criticism and said, "Oh, this uneducated critic, etc."
Of course. Most recently. Most recently. Yes.
And I find that. I mean, great. You take everything with a pinch of salt, right? Because this is collateral damage.
But Karishma, if you dish it out, you have to be able to take it.
Yeah.
You cannot say that I will stand here and say X, Y, and Z, and you cannot come back and say that maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Listen, it's a free country.
It is.
Okay, and if you think that genuinely I come from a place of less education, that I am not informed, or truthfully, and I mean this in the best way possible, not in a condescending and dismissive way. I'm really at that Keanu Reeves stage where if you say 2 + 2 is 5,
you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I understand the pain. Yeah. I get it. So I've been at the other end of it via my husband, who has a spine of steel and doesn't give.
Yeah.
You know what? About anyone or anything, and thinks he did what he loved.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not as steely as that. So the first film that released after our marriage was Kareeb, which was his biggest disaster, financially, critically, in every way.
And that was on your love story.
It was dedicated to me. No, it wasn't our love story, but it was dedicated to me.
Because he's called it his most expensive love letter.
Exactly. And it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And for me, I was just gutting because, you worked on it. I was on the shoot. And the first Friday, it's like not working, और उस वक्त तो बोलते थे क्या कौवे भी नहीं है theater में, and he couldn't care less. He just got up and made the next one, and that's I think a very, very admirable talent. I have
You develop it over time.
You develop it over time, but I will never say that that a director should not be offended.
Yeah.
But I would love to say to all artists that it's not personal.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's personal.
It's not.
Yeah.
It can't be. Because when it becomes that, Karishma, you need to stop.
Yeah. So that's where I come to the next question, right? The dichotomy between business, which is what you spoke about earlier, that I need to balance the P&L, and that works on a lot of other things, which is access, which is views, which is reach, which sometimes will not come because of the critic.
Yes.
Who will say what she feels.
Yeah.
So between the two, the conflict, where were you?
Truthfully, no conflict. For me, it's always the critic.
It's always the critic.
Yeah. Because I feel if you can't do that, honestly, then the foundation is cracked. Then the building cannot stand.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been that I will do this with complete honesty and complete love. That's the other thing. I feel like when you do this for a long time, there is a very real and present danger that you get cynical, that you get bored. You're in films week after week and many of them are terrible. Okay. And you still go into the next one with love.
Yeah.
And so I come to it with love. And the day that stops, then I stop.
Yeah.
But I would never compromise the critic.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you get reviews wrong, for example, I believe that you told your husband that 12th fail.
Absolutely.
People are not going to watch it. And
so, no, this was a discussion on, so truthfully, there's no wrong review because it's an opinion.
It's an opinion. Correct.
So it's not a fact.
Yeah, it's not a fact.
It is what it is.
You have to take it.
I'm the sole defender of Befikre.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I will stand by it till my dying day. But here, it was a conversation about, can this film go to theatres? And me and everybody else around him said no. Because truthfully, what is running are massive event movies with massive A-list stars. And this is a mid-budget film with Vikrant Massey, who's a huge star on streaming, but does not have theatrical legs to pull in an audience. So for all of us, using information that
The data.
Yeah. You're right. Using the data, we present to him this case of why
it should not
happen. And here's the magic of the movies. He says, like he always does, I don't care. Okay?
I just don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah.
For me, he's old school. It has to be on a big screen. I have the camera movement has to be seen in a certain way. The music that I've worked
It's the experience.
It's the experience.
I want you to have the theatrical
and
experience.
he went out and did it and proved us all wrong. And that's
how?
the beauty.
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah.
And for me, that is what makes movies so magical. That it doesn't matter if there are 50 great stars and massive budgets. It won't work.
I really meant it when I said this is the movie of the decade for me. Because I don't remember the last time somebody or a character made me just cry.
Yeah.
And like I felt like that person's victory was my victory.
Thank you.
But
it's what... So movies are business, but movies are also art, and primarily art. And the magic is you don't know what will work. There is no one on the planet. And you can do all the audience testing you want. You can get all the data you want. You can have all the algorithms you want. There's no way to know what will work in a theater.
Yeah.
What will people come for? What will they cry with? And that's the beauty of it.
It is. You never know.
And I'm so happy to be proved wrong.
Yeah. I'll take it.
And for me, it's also a vindication of an artist's conviction.
Yeah.
That you go by that, you go by your gut, and you believe in your story enough to put a shit ton of money behind it.
Yeah, and also just the saying it, right, that I don't care.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge to go against data and take that call.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, so your husband is a director, such a successful director. All his films are just like, it's a warm hug, right? That you feel it. When you are in this position of being a critic, there are so many different stakeholders. Add a layer of your husband being a director who works with some of these people who you're reviewing. How have you navigated that complexity?
So I'll tell you, it's of course it is complicated.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, the tricky thing was like, let's say a film like Donkey. So I've never reviewed Raju's films because obviously Vinod's been part of them. This was the first film he wasn't a part of. But I felt like I still can't review it because we've had too long and too deep a relationship.
Yeah.
You know? So I think pretty much that's where it got like, I had to sit back and say like, is this okay? Can I bring my objective self to it? And I couldn't.
Yeah.
You know? So I stepped out and I didn't review that film. But more or less, Vinod's career and profession and kind of relationships have not complicated it too much. I think because we don't socialize with the film industry.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
You know, because that is what would complicate.
Of course. Like you've reviewed somebody and then you're going out to dinner or going out to a party and you bump into that person and you're like, oh, oops.
Yeah. So when I say we don't socialize with the film industry, it sounds like we're great ragers elsewhere. No, we don't do anything.
We're just not socializing.
we're just hermits. We like being at home.
That's so cute.
So I think that takes out a layer of weirdness and awkwardness. You know, ki yaar ab kya, matlab, I just had dinner at your house and now I have to watch your movie. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. Which was an extremely difficult movie for you to review?
Recently, from this lens or just from the
any lens,
cinema
right?
lens?
Either holistically, which was like, you were like, I don't know how to kind of do this, you know, because it does happen even today. I'm like,
no, it does happen.
I don't know how to do this.
No, it does happen. Let's say something like Kalki, right?
Okay.
I loved the ambition of it. I loved the audacity of Nag Ashwin, and I love the, you know, Hindi mein udaan bolte hain. I love just the leap of faith that this artist is taking. But I could see the soft spots in the storytelling. For me, the first half was clunky. And I felt like this is a director who's taken just this incredible punt on himself, on his imagination, on his ability to tell this story. But then got a little bit insecure, so put in too many cameos, played safe with those things. You know, so for me, that was the kind of, I mean, I want to be a cheerleader for anyone who's daring.
Yeah.
You know, and I was that in my review, but I also have to say, but this is where it fell short.
Yeah.
And that's always complicated.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about your really beautiful family life, which we see on Instagram, and you've just said that you're a hermits, and I love that. I think I find that so cute.
Also, nobody invites us.
Oh, no. So it's not like we are being invited and being like, oh no, I'm sorry.
It's not like 50 invitations and we're like, no, not today.
Not today.
No, it was the funniest conversation I had with Karan, okay? We were invited to his 40th birthday party and we showed up at the dot of time. Like, I don't know, it was 9 p.m. and we were there. 9. And it was Karan and Hero Auntie and us. Okay. And then 10 minutes later, we said, okay, Karan, happy birthday, and we left.
Yeah.
Cut to the 50th birthday party and we're not invited. And then he met me. I did an interview with him. We had a great time chatting. And he's like, Anu, you know you're no good at parties. Yeah. So why pressurize you? I was like, this is perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
You have understood me and I have understood you. Our friendship has hit a new level.
Exactly. So with those people.
Yeah. And you have such a cute love story where you found your husband arrogant in the beginning. And then on your mother's insistence, you gave it another shot. And then he wrote this extremely expensive love letter, which should make all of the men pursuing women feel bad right there. A film was dedicated.
Just make a movie.
You know, it's like, it's easy. Tell me about your love story and tell me how it's evolved, as both of you have taken on such like sharp roles in your careers.
Yeah.
And in the same space, but also very different identities.
So that's by design.
Yeah.
You know, it had to be. It had to be that we keep very, very separate identities. Film Companion does not cover anything that Vinod Chopra Films does. Even if he's not there as a director, as a producer, you know, we just keep the lines.
It's very clean.
It's very clean.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I get trolled for that. Acha, apne husband ki film to nahi kar rahi. I'm like, it's called conflict of interest.
Yeah.
It's a basic idea.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll just be like, best movie ever go.
That's right, exactly. And it's like so fundamental, but people don't get it. So we've kept that very, very separate. The love stories, we're just very good friends. He makes me laugh. What can I tell you? We're very different people. Very different people. He's very volatile. Has a famous temper. I don't. I'm very calm. Very sort of easygoing, almost too easygoing. Which is perhaps why being an entrepreneur was not such a good idea. But it's just, I guess, because the fundamental values are the same. We've been married 28 years now.
Coming to a very interesting and also I would believe like an emotional conversation for you is the one on Film Companion.
Of course.
10 years in, and
Yes.
You are now moving on and taking the next step, and I feel very grateful that you've agreed to speak about it here. So thank you for that. And what are your emotions and what are your thoughts? Because I can so relate, because I started my company in 2014.
As well.
So it is your baby, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And it will always be. And the truth is that the journalistic part of it will go on pause, but not the like the FC Studios, which is our long form arm. We will continue to operate, and thankfully the people at the Hollywood Reporter, the bosses and the powers that be have been gracious enough to say that that's fine, and we can continue with that. But of course it's very bittersweet. I just did my last interview with Vicky Kaushal in the studio, and we were both getting so emotional, and we were like, oh my God. But I feel like it's very important to not get comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's and genuinely for me, just the entrepreneurial side of it became so kind of what's the word? Demanding.
Yeah, it is demanding.
It's very demanding.
24/7, 365.
And that's genuinely not my joy.
Yeah.
All I want is to be in a dark movie theater.
No, it's so fascinating that you recognize that, and I'm so happy because sometimes people go through lifetimes without recognizing that this is what I'm truly meant to do. Like over here, I feel like I'm doing what I'm truly meant to do. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been such a joy, and it's been such a learning curve. But I feel like. What we did really well, but I couldn't figure out what the next 3 years, how would they be different?
Yeah, how would they be different?
And
it's so important to keep growing and evolving.
Yeah. And I never want to be in a place where it all feels like I can do it.
Yeah.
I want to be like,
challenged.
And so, I am now, I was telling our mutual friend Sneha, in fact, that I'm moving between bouts of complete and utter panic and absolute exhilaration. So it's a fascinating time.
As new beginnings always are.
Yes.
So what is life going to look like at the Hollywood Reporter?
I don't know. We will find out. I haven't begun.
Okay.
So it all begins in August.
Okay.
And
you will be operating from.
It's so funny. Yeah. All this noise on the net that she's moving to LA. I'm like, I came back from America 30 years ago because I wanted to talk about Indian cinema.
Indian films, yeah.
I am not moving to LA.
Okay.
I'm on Turner Road in Bandra.
That's specific. Exactly. I'm not only in India, I'm on Turner Road, Bandra.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not begun yet, but you have an idea.
It's a pan-India platform.
Oh, okay.
And we hope to do exciting things, and truthfully, that's all I can say right now.
Okay, that's amazing. And you look very happy. So
I am happy.
So that's amazing, and really excited for all the amazing things that are happening. The documentary that's coming out on Netflix. This huge opportunity with the Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
It's all looking very, very good.
Listen, fingers crossed, it's a leap of faith, and I'm just excited to kind of have new horizons.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go now to the next segment, which we have. It's things about you that we couldn't find on Google. Your favorite actor in Bollywood and the South. I think the first half, I can make an accurate assumption, but...
So truthfully, Karishma, I don't have favorite actors. Because actors are finally vehicles in a larger process.
Okay.
So I would never say that X is my favorite actor. Obviously, there are actors whose cinema you really look forward to.
Okay.
Right?
Who is that?
But that would be like many.
Okay.
Vicky Kaushal.
Okay.
He's such a fine actor. I really look forward to anything he does.
Amazing.
Of course, Shah Rukh, who will be my forever soft spot.
You and billions.
Exactly. You're like, that line from War. He's like, she says to the Ritik character that, you can marry me, and somebody says, get in line. So there's that. There is Fahad Fasil, who I just think is just a miraculous actor. I mean, for me, what he did in Avesham is just another level of shedding of vanity and becoming a character and just taking a film to another level. Ranbir Kapoor, who I think is just stunning.
Yeah.
Just stunning. I mean, I always think that we can't see him acting. There's you can't see the strings moving. You can't see anything. He's just who he's playing.
Yeah.
Despite being
character.
Such a massive star.
Yeah.
So all these, I mean, Nayanthara, who's just amazing.
She's
Deepika,
great.
Alia, I mean, my God. Who genuinely, when I first saw her in Student of the Year, I'm like, yeah, okay. Or Deepika. Yeah. For the first few films, I was like, okay, beautiful, but like,
What else?
What else?
Yeah.
And then just look at how they've evolved.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always actors. Yeah.
Okay. Your favorite Vidhu Vinod Chopra film?
So I would say it's a tie between Parinda and 12th Fail.
Okay. One interview that was the most difficult to conduct?
So there was around the time of The Happening, I did an interview with M. Night Shyamalan, and he had just a couple of, the last few years had been a little difficult, films had underperformed, and so I quoted some story to him from Variety, which was not very flattering, and he just said to me, he's like, everything you've just said is untrue, and I was like, oh,
Okay.
I don't know what the comeback should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just like this very awkward moment.
Yeah.
And he's of course an amazing director, but it was just, I guess, a rough time.
Yeah. A film you can watch 10 times?
Sholay?
No. Something in your daily life that you just can't do without?
Oh God, I wish I could say it wasn't the phone, but it is the phone.
phone. Yeah. A dream dinner guest?
Wow, that's a nice one. I would have loved to, and I did meet him, Dilip Saab, Dilip Kumar. We did meet. He did come home after seeing 3 Idiots, but I never had the opportunity to actually imagine the stories of making Mughal-e-Azam.
Yeah.
What that world must have been like. Just for that, I would have loved to have him over for dinner.
Yeah. 3 things you've learned from Shah Rukh Khan?
Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
Just don't. It's fine. No matter who you are. And he's king of the world, right? Also, I think to treat people courteously. And this is amazing, Karishma. I've never understood how he finds the time to do this. But when you go to his house, he will come and walk you to your car. And you're Shah Rukh Khan, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But he will do that. He will stand and he will open that damn door and he will put you in your car. And it just feels like just such a nice, just kind thing to do.
Yeah.
And to just kind of...
You feel looked after.
You'll feel looked after and you feel like it's not a show.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep that up for like 20 years.
Yeah. He genuinely means it.
He genuinely means.
Yeah.
And that he looks after you, and that's lovely. A third thing would be, damn, to be as smart as he is, which is not going to happen. But it's just to be able to talk about so many
Different
things.
subjects.
I mean, I can't. I don't know jack about anything outside the movies. you know, and it's just such a limited worldview, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing. I remember Aditya Chopra had once told me that when they were younger, they would speak about anybody who's not in the movies as civilians. That's just me. Like everybody else is civilian. I don't know what conversation to have.
Oh my God.
The only thing I know is the movies.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe you should have
a different horizon.
A different horizon. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It brings us to the end of the conversation. It was so lovely. Didn't feel very much like an interview. And how did I do?
You did very well. I was just going to say exactly the same thing. It didn't feel very much like an interview, and that is success.
Okay, amazing. Everybody is happy. And I'm wishing you so much love and luck for everything that's coming your way. And you've truly inspired me. Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm rooting for you. Excited for everything that's happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was lovely.
If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon. Thank you all for being the best community, and I'll see you soon.